Okay, well, welcome back to another video. Since the last one, I've been working on planking the inside of the bulwarks and stuff, covering up where I had died with that walnut. And I hope you all agree with me that it looks so much better planked inside there. I think trying to get the dye to take on the different pieces of wood the same color, and the fact that glue touches it, water touches it, anything like that causes it to run and stain even after several days of drying. Trying to get a nice uniform finish off of it is going to be difficult, but putting the planking on really has helped it out. I also added the transom on here. I had once again thought about filming putting that on, and it was proving to just be too difficult. This actually ended up being a much more difficult piece to put on than I anticipated. Let's see if I can move back a little bit here. It might be hard to see. It's, we have this area here where it kind of sits on, except it has to line up, and you can see I'm not quite lined up. I think the camera is exaggerating how much misalignment there is in these uh, cuts away there. But this whole thing needs to sit kind of upward. It actually doesn't sit on there. There's a small gap. And the problem is you need to basically be able to see it in like 4 or 5 different places at the same time. There is a curvature on the back, but there's also a slight curvature as it comes up. And so that gives you a compound curve, which wood does not like to have. So what I ended up basically having to do is I glued the top here first using CA and kind of ran some clamps between here, clamped that on, got pretty much the curvature up there correctly. It was slanted down, but it was off, hanging off down here. I waited for that to dry, and then wetted it all down again, pushed this in, glued it up, and used nails down there to secure it. So that's how I ended up putting that on, but just trying to film it. I needed to, pick the hole up and trying to keep it in the camera frame while I was doing all of that was just proving very difficult. So I just decided to kind of, let's get it done right, so that then we can move on. So that's kind of the state of the model right now. So now it's time for us to turn our attention to planking the hole and closing up this lower section here and getting all of this done. So let me go and set up the camera, flip the ship around, and we'll start talking about how we're going to plank the hole. So okay, we're going to be using these 2mm by 5mm limewood planks to do the hole. We're primarily there's going to be two of them for the entire length of the hole. These things, obviously, you can see they're not long enough to cover the whole thing. So we're going to be alternating between ending them on these two ribs. I prefer to cycle between 3 ribs, but this one is too far forward for me to get one all the way to the back, and then this one is too far back to get one all the way to the forward. So we're just going to alternate um, the joint so that this first one will have the joint here, the next plank will have the joint here, and we'll just alternate so that they're not all the joints are in the same place, creating a weak spot on the hole. These first few planks are fairly easy to put in. Obviously, we're starting here from the keel. That's what the directions for this model say. We'll have to do some minor bending up here. I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Lime wood bends very easy with water and heat, so I'm not going to be using Windex or anything like that for it. We'll be using mostly a soldering iron with a special attachment, and potentially a covering iron if I need to get it in there. As we get further down, they'll need more and more bending. This first section, though, just has a little bit of bending as it kind of is going to curve over this part of the hole and stuff in there. The rest of it stays relatively flat. Once we get down to this side, instead of a curve, we're going to need a twist. So, this plank is going to twist to almost 90 degrees. We're going from kind of being flat here to being vertical down here. And although you probably could glue it and clamp it on, without heating and everything. There's going to be a lot of tension on that. You're going to find it probably pretty difficult to glue. So we're going to use, again, just the heat. I'll probably, yeah, still be using the soldering iron for that. But just a little bit of a different technique that I use to put a twist in there, so that we can get it vertical down here without a whole lot of tension on there, which makes it go in, pretty easy. The instructions also have you put nails into every single one of these ribs. I'm going to kind of put them in, I'll say, as needed, because they just make sanding the hole a whole lot more difficult. Um, and really, the nails only need to be there to hold the plank in while the glue is drying. We're going to be using white glue. We'll glue each to the rib, but most importantly, each plank has to be glued to the plank next to it. That's going to make this hole immensely strong. And yeah, even without any of those nails in there, that's going to stay adhered to these ribs and these forms. So I'm gonna, like I said, if I don't need a nail at a certain location, then I'm not going to put it in, because I either have to sand the head off or try to pull the nail out later on. There are going to be some places that are just absolutely going to need it, mostly up at the bow. We get some in this section here, we're going to need to nail them down. Up here where it's even doing this twist, though, I probably won't need them. Because you can actually just clamp to the other side, hold it in place, and wait for the glue to dry without a nail. So that's kind of going to be the plan. So let's go ahead and kind of get started. I have a couple of these planks already soaking in wood. I've got the soldering irons heating up. And so we'll come back. I'll show you how I'm going to bend some planks. Got to figure out how I'm actually going to film that. And then we'll attach the planks to the hole. Okay, we'll get ready to bend the plank. I put a little mark on it before I soaked it in water, just to kind of indicate about where the bend needs to start. This is going to be the straight part that goes back towards the stern. This here is going to be where the curve goes. I bought a plank bender tool to try to do this. So this is something new. I didn't use this here on the first ship that I built. I just used my covering iron. I didn't like, it came with basically a soldering iron just like this with this tip on it. It was only a 30 watt, and I did some test things, and it really, to me, it didn't have enough heat in it. So I just took the tip off and stuck it on my main soldering iron that goes up to like 80 watts. And so that's going to have plenty of heat in it. It also came with this little jig. Don't know if I'll stick with it all the way through or not, but we'll see how it goes. You can see, all you're doing, I'm soaking the wood. You can just put the heat and pressure on there. The water is basically to keep the wood from burning. Although it does soften it a little bit. You're basically, as you're heating it up, you're boiling the water off here. And you end up with a nice bend. This is probably sufficiently bent for this first part here. Let's do a quick test fit up here. I'll bring the ship kind of back into view. This piece is going to end up here. And then, yeah, it's just going to flip over. Hopefully you can see it. It's going to flip over just like that. There is still a little bit of tension up here as I put it in, but not enough. We relieved a lot of it. So that's pretty much all there is to bending these planks for that. This, like I said, is a pretty subtle amount of bend. Some of the ones later on will have to get a greater amount. So once it's bent, it's dry, it'll stay that way. So I'm going to set this aside, and we'll come back and I'll add the twist that we're going to be doing for the back section. So let me reset, and we'll come back and do that twist. Okay, I'm set up here to put the twist in the piece of wood. You can see all I do is after I soak the wood, I clamp it kind of to my table on one end, and I did just like the other one have a little mark there about on it. Probably cameras may and may not be picking it up on where the twist kind of needs to be more or less centered on the twist. And then I always kind of look up at the hull of the ship, make sure I'm twisting in the right direction. If you don't, it's not that big a deal because we're going to need a whole bunch on the other side. They're going to have the opposite twist. So you just set it aside, wait for later and everything. But this is going to twist this way. And then again, you just kind of heat it up, holding that twist in. You can heat both sides. Okay, and hopefully, I'm not sure again how it's picking up, but you can see that there is the twist is staying within the water, or yeah, within the board right now. It's not that full 90-degree twist that we're going to need, but we don't need it to be that much in there. It's all just about relieving a lot of the tension on it so that it'll be held in place easier and stuff to allow the glue to dry. That's all there is to twisting the wood. Now we can basically start attaching them to the hole. Let me get reset, and we'll go through and we'll attach these first two planks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and attach this. This plank is going to run from this rib on down. What I like to do, and sometimes I'll use a knife, sometimes I'll use a file, is put a little tiny groove, try to center it up at the end here. And this is basically to accommodate a nail. So it doesn't have to be a deep thing. You probably can't even see it there. But there, the two ends are going to butt together, and we'll throw a nail between them. So we don't want a gap. And that's basically just to give us kind of gap relief here. Put a little bit of glue and I'm going to run glue down the side of this plank so we can actually glue it to the false keel. Okay. And I've got a 1/8 millimeter drill bit in here. I'm going to have to put a nail here, go in, and that's basically just, we want to be able to hold this plank in place while we position the rest of it. There we go. And it's wanting to pop up off of this rib, so we'll have to put another nail right here. we'll skip that rib because it's firmly all the way down onto the rib. So you can just grab a little bit of scrap wood, clean up any glue that's coming out. That'll just save us time later, because we'll just have to clean it with before we put the next plank on. So I think we're going to need a nail on this one. So I've got white glue underneath this section up here. A little further up, I'm going to add a little bit of CA, which is going to allow it to adhere a little bit faster. Just got to hold it in place for probably a good 15 seconds for that CA in there to cure and kind of hold this plate thing in place. And then once it's all good, we'll come in and we'll actually trim it right up to the false keel where it should end. Maybe just to be on the safe side, and so I don't have to sit here and continue to hold it, we'll stick a nail right here. Now, nail bent over, but it's doing its job. I'll pull it out later. I just wanted to, keep it bent down, keep the tension off of where the glue is joining up there. And, once the glue dries, I'll just pull the nail out and we'll trim that. So now we'll come back here and we'll do the aft section to make sure that I got it so the twist is running the right way. Okay, so we're going to go down here. This first one, as we get to the stern, it's not going to stay all the way at the edge, all the way up. It's not going to really want to do that. So we're going to let it come down, and actually down to about this spot is where we'll glue it in. And then the only thing is to make sure when we do the other side, we will try to match the same spot, same location on the other side, so that we can keep the two sides fairly symmetrical. I'm going to come in again. This might be off camera, I don't know, but I want to make sure I'm getting the little groove in the center. There we go. I'm going to do the same thing. We'll glue that when we see exactly where it's going to be. So once again, I'm just going to glue down around on the sides, especially up here where it's going to be going. Where the twist starts, we can't really glue, because it's not going to be touching anything. Okay. Let's see, I broke the drill bit. And that's the problem with these little 1/8 millimeter drill bits, is they don't work. Might have to switch to my non-electric drill for this. Got a different drill that worked for me well the last time. Just takes a little longer. Okay, so down here, not even going to nail it. Like I said, we'll just clamp it to the side there, clean up any excess glue. And try this one without drilling the hole, but usually it doesn't go so well. Actually worked. So that's got those two tied together. And that's pretty much all there is to it. We're going to kind of rinse and repeat and keep working our way down. What I'll probably do is do maybe 2 to 3 planks on this side. Then I'll start doing the same planks on the other side. And that way I can actually do more, especially when we get up front, because the two sides will be offset. It becomes a problem up at the bow where these things are going to, the planks while they're drying have to curve around the bow and they'll start interfering with each other. But with keeping both sides kind of a little offset, one has more planks on it than the other, it allows you to progress a little bit faster because they'll kind of pass each other up on the top. I typically, at least in my first ship model, I would do enough to do like 2 rows of planks at a time in terms of soaking them, bending them, and then I could get 2 rows in with each other. If I needed to clamp, the clamps are big enough to clamp both rows in there. But these first ones are kind of critical, so I'm going to go and let these dry, and we'll come back and take a look after I get a few more of these in here. Okay, and we're back. As you can see, I've progressed with the planking. I've got 5 planks along this side, 3 on the other side, and the first basically 4 planks, and so you're pretty much just following the same procedures. It's starting kind of with the 5th plank here. You can see it that you got to start doing some things a little bit different. You can see I've left this little gap here, and then we'll come back in later with little wedges of wood and fill that in. And you kind of have to do that because it takes more planks to go around this middle than it's going to take to basically go around the stern or the bow. So we have to kind of compensate for that right at the moment here. And so, like I said, we're leaving that gap. On the stern, you just kind of let the planks fall where they want to fall. It is best to try to keep the larger gap to be about 1 plank width, so that you can just trim a plank into a triangle and go in there and just one single one will fix it. Now, what we're going to have to start doing with the next one is we're not going to run it the whole length. I've got a shorter little plank here, and as you can see, it's not going to run all the way to the bow or to the stern. It's going to end right here. And then the next plank over or down that we'll actually put in will run all the way to the bow and all the way to the stern, just like they did before. But we'll end up leaving again little triangular wedges that we'll have to cut out and fill in. Okay, now that's just kind of the way these models are planked. And don't forget, this is kind of the inner planking. There's going to be an outer planking that goes there. The real ships would have been, the planks would have gotten thinner as you got towards the bow, towards the stern, things like that, to compensate for the fact that it would take less of them to fit in here. So they would figure out how much they had to thin each one, so it was the same number of planks basically the whole length. If you really want to do super detailed scale models, then that's what you would do is kind of that same thing. But here with these, since obviously nobody's going to see this internal planking, we'll just cut the wedges and you do what makes it easiest for you. I'd gone back and forth on whether or not I wanted to thin out when I put the veneers on, since that's what will be seen. But I don't think I'm going to do it. I'll probably follow the same kind of method in here, which is what's recommended in the instructions. And I know from doing the Beagle that you have to look close to be able to see the individual planks, and they all kind of blend in so well with each other, especially once they're sanded and veneered. I think for the most part it looks fine. I'm not trying to win competitions or anything with these models. I'm doing them just for the fun of for myself. So not worried about them being hyper accurate to scale. So that's probably what I'm going to do. This is probably a good place to close out the first planking video. We'll come back. I'll probably shoot 1 or 2 short videos as I go, as I have to hit and try do certain techniques or something, just to kind of keep you updated on how the planking progresses. But it's probably going to take me several days, if not even a week and a half or more, to get all of this planking done. And then once we get the lower sections done, then we have to actually worry about this little gap that's between that big thicker plank that we put in. That's going to take some little special stuff, because the gap is not uniform as we run all the way down. You can see back here it gets a little bit wider. In the instructions, they do have some special kind of techniques and things like that. So like this whole section of the stern right here is going to be just a series of short little planks. Same thing at the bow. And then once all of this is done, we've got to go in and start putting the additional plankings up down here to cover up the bulwarks. Now the added complication there is we have all the cannon ports to cut out, some of which we can't really cut all the way through because they have those backing boards for the cannon. Square ones are relatively easy to do. We're going to see what I'm going to have to do to get the round ones cut out. When I did the inner planking, that thin stuff, I did use basically a rotary tool with a CNC bit. So I was able to go in there and kind of cut them out. Of course, these are a lot thicker than that veneer. So we want to see, and we want to keep them as circular as possible. So that going to have to be a very probably slow, methodical process to getting those cleared. So anyway, this video has probably lasted on long enough. If you like what you're seeing, please like and subscribe, and look forward to hearing from you. And like I said, I'll keep you updated with some future videos on how the planking progresses.